in 2016, in December, a man died of hypothermia in front of Brussels Midi, and later you would think people care more about the vulnerable, but Angela Merkel came to visit in January 2017, and they just kicked everybody out. Later, they came back and they installed metal barriers to stop this thin slice of shelter that they had.
We're so happy to see how the younger generations of architects, instead of talking about star architects like Norman Foster, for example, they're choosing to talk about topics such as hostile architecture. To be honest, when we used to be students, which was 10 years ago, we had very little understanding about hostile architecture. But if you follow urban architecture, you know that we dominate this subject and we are very good at it. However, we're very intrigued and interested to start learning about hostile architecture from today's students. Today in Urban Architecture, we're going to explore this topic through the fresh perspective of the students in Brussels. Stay tuned.
Hey,
Hi.
how's it going? Can you tell us a little bit about you and your background and what you are doing?
Of course. My name is Aksu, studied my bachelor's in Italy, and now I'm studying my master's at KU Leuven here in Brussels.
Architecture.
Architecture, of course. And I'm very passionate right now about how hostile architecture finds its way through every design and also felt accessibility in architecture.
We found the specialist in hostile architecture. Hostile architecture, the terminology came from where? Where did it start, or how did it pop up in the news, research?
Hostile architecture is often referred to as defensive architecture because there is this seeming need for architecture to defend itself. And it's also hostile means unfriendly, unwanting of certain behaviors or certain people around.
Now, who's behind it? Like, is it like city authorities? Is it like private developers? Is it like architects, or we don't know, or maybe sort of activists who want to protect the city?
In my opinion, hostile architecture exists in jurisdictional gaps so that it's easy to blame everybody. It can be the contractor, it can be the designer. In Garden Midi, it can be STIP, it can be the Saint-Gilles municipality. So it's very hard to put the blame on just one person. The result is that it happens and that most of the people who use it don't want it, but everybody else from above, it's a top-down policy. And these benches become policy, they write rules, they are almost like a little policeman who never sleeps. And of course, I am joking, but it means that design affects behavior and it gives rules to people without wearing a uniform. So for example, right now you cannot lie down even if you are tired. Even worse, it's hard to sit here. It's only metal, so it includes a short stay. So all of these things actually decide how you use a bench, who is allowed to use the bench, how long can you stay on the bench.
Now we are talking about South Station, Train South Station case. So you mainly spotted benches with hostile, and we imagine these benches come also in different forms.
Yes, of course. They can be leaning benches where only older people can rest and you cannot really lie. It can be smaller benches. It can be them just cut. It can be positioned them differently. Like if you just divide the benches and you put them back to back, then people will not want to stay there. They also decide how many people are allowed to stay there and what relationship will be created in this public space.
Other than benches, what did you have discovered during your research, like hostile elements in the city?
There are a lot of spikes in front of window shops because sometimes they have this window where you have light, you still have some work from the inside, you have some coverage because sometimes they are recessed, and they put spikes so people cannot stay there.
And are you telling us that hostile architecture revolves around a bench with a stupid handle that makes you uncomfortable? Is there other elements that can be defined as hostile architecture in public space?
In my opinion, hostile, when you say hostile, you mean unfriendly and bad and evoking, it pushes you away architecture. It's saying you don't linger, don't enjoy this place. You can only be comfortable here if you are tidy, if you have an ID. Only certain amount of people are allowed to actually enjoy the public space. And that's defined by the materials, by the proxemics in the culture sometimes, by parks being closed at some hours, some parks, if they're more protected or not. Also, failed accessibility. If the ramp is too steep, it automatically tells people you're not allowed to come in, you're not welcome here. And so I definitely think that the designers are influenced from the top. But most of the time, some installations that become hostile are put after they notice that there is a problem there. So if they see multiple unhoused people sheltering in one spot, they're going to put extra bars or space dividers so they're no longer allowed, or they're going to move the benches somewhere else or just divide them. Or this actually happened. There was this square in Torino that was known for unhoused people sleeping there because it was right next to the Casa del Quartiere, I don't know, the neighborhood home that usually cared for older people and had a lot of activities. And because they noticed that, they started putting a lot of lights, so they're not able to sleep. And they called it a nice thing for the summer evening to go there and have lights and be safer for women, of course. Like, it's better to have lights so things are monitored and maintained. But the main issue for them was that unhoused people were sleeping there.
Would like with you to explore more cases, like more things that you have noticed in your personal experience that you consider it as hostile, and see if people can associate with it or not.
Yeah,
For
so
example.
this is, I think, one of the main problems with hostile architecture. It's very hard to say exactly this is hostile because it's very subjective. So, for example, as a girl, I sometimes enjoy having this divider. So I know that there's not a man touching me or sitting weird with me. So that gives me safety, but then it depends on the context because this armrest can also be reversible. I sit down, I don't want to be around people, I will just open it. They have this in the cinema, for example. Like, if you change the context, I wouldn't say that the seats in cinemas are hostile.
Yeah.
But if you put the seats of cinema
Interesting.
here,
I never thought about it. Or like the planes, the flights.
Yeah,
the bus.
exactly.
Oh, interesting. You see, these kind of... Oh, can you share with us other examples than like homeless and girls with hostile architecture?
yes, of course. I had this issue a lot of times because when I was doing my research, people were just assuming I'm trying to promote unhoused people sleeping there or just everything to be a shelter for unhoused people. And that's completely untrue because it can be dangerous also as a girl. Sometimes I avoid the tunnel because I know that there's a lot of people or there's substance abuse in that area. So it depends a lot how you divide the people and how you try to scatter them and push them away or keep it tidy in a way. There's this questioning of the vision of why do we want a society to look clean all the time? And how can safety be assured? Because safety is not always just having a bench. Safety can be better maintenance. Safety can be having more staff. Safety can be you have a camera next to you. So if you have a camera, also I noticed this, even unhoused people prefer to have some monitoring around them so they know nobody will steal or do violence on them.
Now we dive to the real research. So our dear friend will take us in a journey how this topic started. How did she pick it up? The reaction of the professor, the colleagues in the university, and the different processes on site. Could you please tell us about this very interesting journey?
Beginning when I started, I got very angry and obsolete about this hostile architecture. Like, I was very disregarding it, but it's also not good because I'm putting a value judgment on another designer's work, which is not fair. We need to notice why this is being commissioned, why it's being bought, why it's being applied. It's not the designer's fault that did it, of course. And some people enjoy it, and some people think, okay, it's good that I can sit there and there's no smell and there's no bags and there's no people around me. But yeah, I think the most important part was that people were thinking that I'm focusing on unhoused population when it's not true. For example, it's a very shallow example, but I am a smoker. I like to sit down sometimes when I smoke, and I would like to have an actual comfortable space where I can sit, I can put my bag, I can look around, I can invite a friend to sit next to me. And again, it comes to the context part because there is in Gare du Midi, actually, right here in the metro station.
The South Station, you mean?
The South Station, yes. The seats are like this. They are all separate.
Oh, yeah.
And they remind me of Achille Castiglioni. He's an architect who designed a lot of very good furniture. And one of his chairs was actually with a 50s tractor seat that had the exact same shape. But the context differs because that was an amazing, beautiful designed piece of furniture. Whereas if you put it in the public and in a station, it becomes hostile.
We saw actually in your research that you have kind of installed some pyramids. Are they related to hostile architecture?
The pyramids on the desk are actually spikes because I wanted to see how people would react to having this type of hostileness and unnecessary hostileness in our classroom, in our own warm and known environment, for example. So you can confuse them as pyramids, but if you saw them on the floor in front of a gate, you would know that they are spikes, and also because if they were metal. But yes, I think that it's very important for us to consider how we would interpret it in our own space, because sometimes public space feels just like a third place. It's not our own anymore. We don't consider it as ours so that we don't get affected by it, and it's easy for us to disregard it. But when you have it close, it becomes a problem.
When it touches you, yeah, it's true.
Yes, when you're vulnerable,
You start questioning
it.
it. Yeah. Well, actually, it's a very interesting experiment within your bubble as students. But can you imagine that maybe 90% of Brussels, let's talk about Brussels population, they have no clue what is hostile. They don't even question it. So maybe it's a way kind of bringing these kind of elements somewhere close to people to make them like, hey, there is something going on. And if you are in this group or if you are targeted, you will feel it.
I think it's very easy to disregard certain issues until they personally affect you. And it's very hard to pay attention to stuff that have never actually bothered you. So while I was building the pyramids or the spikes, whatever, I realized like I was doing this repetitive thing. And once I got to the fifth one, it was such a tiresome and awful job. And I realized this is so pointless because nobody's going to get hurt by this, but in reality they do, you know? So I think that it's very important to, as you said, bring it home, bring it to your bubble, and try to do it by yourself and realize exactly what can happen.
I think part of the problem of hostile architecture, not part, more than 60-70% of it is really mental. It's like something psychological in a way.
Yeah, it teaches you what to avoid and how to stay constantly. Even if it's not designed anti-you, you still feel that this is anti-something, I will not approach it, I will stay away. I realized that it's very easy to just point the finger and say, this is bad, this is not good. But then I had to ask myself, where can I be actionable in this thing? So I went out, I was studying everything around Brussels, and then I chose this bench exactly that's multiple around the whole station. And I modeled it, I surveyed it, and then I was thinking, like, is this a design challenge or is this a moral obligation for me? What is my main interest in it? And then the moral obligation is, of course, architecture should never cause harm and it shouldn't wound people. But then also, where can I be actionable and how does it become a good design challenge? We should make it cheap, we should make it easy so that more people can do it. It doesn't have to be an architect, they can be activists, and it can be easily repairable, because this is the whole thing. Architecture should stop defending itself, it should give to the people, and it should create the feeling of care. So I imagined these poly-Europlat, actually the Europlat boxes that you would attach at the same height as this one. And you put them like this, and then the bench, you can completely lie on it. Of course, it will be higher, and it's going to be very hard to sit, because the seat is going to be very high. But that's why they are modular. You can just store them under the seat in the night, for example, or depending on the use that you want to make of it. Also, they can become a table for something. If you put just one Europlat box, you can just use it to put your coffee or to hold your hand, or it can become a small table for the seat. It's not just for lying down. That's my point.
Built like a model, one-to-one or something, or it was...
No, I tried to. I wanted to do that, but at the construction lab, I had to buy all of the materials. So I...
And what kind of like feedbacks you received from the from the university or the researchers around you?
I would say it was a bit skeptical, because all of these ideas that I was proposing were almost in the utopian world. Like, I was very idealistic about it. We're going to stop homelessness. All of the public space will be so safe and accessible by everyone, and everybody will have an amazing bench and planters next to it and take care of a farm next to it. But of course, my optimism had to slow down and get more
realistic.
Yes.
So do you think now, after this research, you kind of built the capacity of hostile architecture, not necessarily benches again,
yes,
and kind of have a reflection about it and some sort of solution, not instantly, or maybe kind of to create sort of a platform or to address different associations of people, because I don't think you can fight it alone.
In my opinion, since I started studying it, I started paying more attention to it, because I always had this kind of in the back of my mind. And I realized that hostileness comes in so many forms. Like, for example, I just showed you I was coming here, and I noticed in the tram bus, there was no, like in the tram station, there was no proper seat. You're not allowed to even sit on the stairs here. They have signs, you're not allowed to sit on the stairs. Why are they dividing, like why are they prohibiting this type of normal behavior and telling people how to use their own space? And another problem for me is inaccessibility also for people who are visually impaired, because all of the tactile paving is usually just stopping in the middle of nowhere or completely inexistent. So how are they allowed to even get somewhere?
Did you think about next steps, how to fight that?
Yeah, so for example, there used to be this collective Design for Everyone. It was actually from Tangier, and there were people doing this type of interventions and coming together. And this happened also in where they put the metal barriers in March 2017. They dismembered them in 5 minutes, because there were 30 people, and each 5 minutes they didn't destroy anything, they didn't break anything. They just quietly took them up and put them down. So it shows that the solution can be so tactical and playful. It doesn't have to be something complicated. And also Brussels Brussels Mobility has this tool, Fix My Street, it's called, and it makes people claim their own city, and you can actually make complaints and report different stuff. Exactly. It can be either that the sidewalk is too high, so you cannot cross with a wheelchair, or the light is broken and you're afraid to go home because it's a dark spot. So there's a lot of things that if they just bother you, you can.
Very interesting and very intense topic as always. Hostile architecture is very difficult. So lesson learned about it.
I learned that intention is not always the outcome. So maybe now that because the benches are uncomfortable and hostile and unusable, it doesn't mean that it was always the intention. So how do we take care of this result? How can we fix it and use what we already have? Because we have existing materials. We do not need new benches in all the train stations in Brussels. We need to find a way to easily fix the ones that we have already.
And for the future, do you have any plans, ideas?
Yes, for the future, I plan to continue my research in hostile architecture and find exactly the connection between the use and the amount of them and where they are applied.
Good luck with your research and keep us updated.
Definitely will. Thank you.
And as always, let's wrap up with the City Secret sketch inspired by this great interview. In the illustration, you see a group of people in a movie theater, but there is one odd element. Among all the usual cushioned seats, there is a single hostile bench. This bench is made of metal, making it far less comfortable than the soft padded chairs around it. And yet, just like the other seats, it has an armrest. Strange, isn't it? Why would a bench equipped with an armrest will be considered hostile while the cushioned seats are not? If you take a closer look, the answer becomes clear. The armrests on the cushioned seats are movable. Visitors can lift them up or put them down depending on their personal preferences. In contrast, the armrest on the hostile bench is fixed. It dictates a single restrictive way of sitting. Why is it that in commodified spaces where people usually engage in just one activity, we're offered flexibility, comfort and choice, while in public spaces where people use urban environments in rich, multi-layered ways, we often install rigid urban design meant to control behavior? The question is simple. Why don't we adopt more adaptable architecture precisely there where the demand for it is highest? Furthermore, as our guest suggested, what if we carefully analyze hostile architecture and use it as a foundation for creating inviting spaces instead? It may not be the ultimate solution, but it's certainly a fantastic starting point for shaping urban environments into what they truly are, a vital resource for life.
Thanks again for watching this nice episode. Please don't forget to check out the book, maybe buy it actually. And City Secret text, that's you have to go through Patreon, maybe subscribe and get very nice, hidden, mysterious sculptures.